I guess Errol should be home by now, Gabriel said, checking his calendar. He did miss that scaly busybody, even though he had not given much thought to what she had said. It wasn't necessary. He was doing just fine, and he would continue to do just fine. Gabriel, look, there's going to be an eating competition, Rosati said, grabbing hold of Gabriel's arm and pulling him to the display board. Gabriel had to check what he was seeing. The advertisement looked more like some chess tournament combined with a boxing match, instead of the lowbrow display of gluttony it was. He had seen some television shows and a few videos on the local internet, but he had guessed they were a niche thing. But looking at the way everyone glanced at the display, he was clearly missing something. I don't... What is everyone so excited about? Gabriel asked, gesturing to the sign. It's an eating competition, you know. One of the most popular sports in the galaxy, Nish explained, as if she were talking to a 5-year-old. It's a bunch of overweight losers stuffing their faces for a load of rubes. Gabriel countered, his sentence coming out a little more scathing than he originally intended, though not by much. Nish and Rosati looked at him like he had called all doctors a joke. There's evidently some culture clash here. Why are eating contests considered lowly on Earth? Asked Rosati, drawing on all her experience in the classroom to keep things civil. It glorifies gluttony, consumption for entertainment rather than need, Gabriel explained, somewhat surprised he had managed to make his sentence so eloquent on such short notice. Well, I guess you have a point, but what's wrong with that? Asked Nish, who was finding this new perspective she had been given challenging to wrap her head around. This attitude came from the different selective pressures their homeworlds had created. Habitable worlds were energy rich. This abundance of food was due to a molecule that was similar to ATP, but better. In turn, this meant that the plant analogues in habitable worlds had more energy per gram, which also meant that the animals did not need to worry about food shortages, except in times of extreme scarcity. As a result, most habitable worlds had poor energy storage systems, so they needed to eat little and often. On the plus side, it meant obesity was nearly impossible to achieve. Most habitable worlds would need to eat non-stop for months on end to become overweight. Logically, this would mean food was seen less as a precious resource and more akin to air. Hence, eating contests are considered a legitimate sport, rather than a spectacle of overindulgence. Gabriel could see the logic. It was still weird, though. You should sign up, Gabriel. You'd wipe the dead with them, Rosati suggested, her excitement bubbling up. No way in hell, Gabriel replied, crossing his arms to make an X right in Rosati's face. Why not? I think you would be marvellous, Nish replied. There's nothing wrong with watching a man push his body to the limit like that. Her voice taken on the same quality, when she thought of her one-time lover's physical traits. Nish, are you attracted to people who can eat a lot? Asked Gabriel, honest believing he was just grasping at straws. Of course I am. Aren't you? Nish explained, looking at him confused. It was known as the universal infatuation. I've never really considered it, Gabriel responded with a shrug. Even if I wanted to, I'm a deaf welder. I would have an unfair advantage, he added, as his eyes were drawn to the prizes. 5,000 credits in gift vouchers, viable in any shop on 70 worlds. That was quite the prize. Gabriel was not overly materialistic, but that amount of money was tempting. Shouldn't the anti-discrimination laws allow it? Asked Rosati. No, it's not discrimination when one species has a clear inborn biological advantage over another, said Gabriel. I mean, Nish would kill it in a high jumping competition. She can't fly after all, he added, gesturing to her. You two can give it a go, though, Gabriel pointed out. We can't compete with these people. They will have been training for months, Nish explained. Given the context, Gabriel shook his head. There was something so incomprehensible about that term right now. Can we move on, please? This is supposed to be a lazy day. No long trips, no jumping into enclosures, and no getting lost, Gabriel said. You're cranky, Pista said, climbing onto his back. Maybe. I didn't sleep too well last night, Gabriel replied, stretching and cracking his knuckles. Ew, Pista said, with a mixture of revulsion and amazement. Gabriel, please don't. I just ate, Rosati said, covering her mouth. It's just bubbles forming in my joints, Gabriel explained. It's gross bubbles forming in your... Rosati tried to finish her sentence, but her attention quickly shifted to not bathing in the street. So I take it you won't be taking part? Said Nish. Gabriel responded in the negative, and if he was reading her right, Nish was disappointed. Oh, come on. If we spend all our time dawdling, we will miss the movie, Gabriel explained. They were going to see an animated children's film. They had chosen it because it was supposed to be pretty good, and because it was shown in Ketrok, the native Torfanda language Pista spoke. Though Pista could speak Galactic Basic, her grasp of the language was not complete, and she would be unable to follow subtitles with any consistency. All in all, it had been pretty good. Formulaic, to be sure, but the characters had been well written, and the plots compelling enough. Gabriel supposed his biggest complaint was how tame it had all been. Even for a kids' movie, it lacked any real physical risk. "Ah, we missed it," Risotti pouted, pointing to the eating contest that was in the business of being packed up as the winner accepted their prize. The event had taken place in a sizable pedestrianised plaza, and judging from the number of people milling about, it had been quite the turnout. "God's sake, if you miss it that much, I'll just stuff my face in my apartment," Gabriel said, with a wave of his hand. "Really? You do that for us?" asked Risotti, her excitement building. Gabriel did not know how to respond. He meant it as a sarcastic comment to show how silly it was, but to Risotti's ears, Gabriel had done the equivalent of offering to put on a private gymnastic performance. "Evel always refused to do it when I asked her," Risotti added, with a mix of disappointment and sadness that her girlfriend was not here with them. Gabriel was hungry, and he supposed it wasn't too weird to have them watch, as long as they had a drink or something. It was times like this that, for all the same base desires as humans, aliens were alien. It was an interesting platter laid before him, or platters, each one filled with dozens of different bite-sized foodstuffs. There were two main categories in eating competitions, amount and endurance. Amount was just how it sounded, whoever could eat the most. Endurance was all about the problematic foods, either because of toughness, spiciness, saltiness, sourness, or other extreme flavours. It seemed Nish and Risotti had ordered a meal that covered both categories. Even though Pissa had never said anything, she was clearly excited about what she was about to see. Sighing, Gabriel tried to think of it as an adventurous food experiment. "What's this one?" Gabriel asked, holding up what looked like a tiny apple. "That's a brello, also known as the Joanie Frezel, which roughly translates to a devil's fruit," Risotti explained. "Very famous back home. People usually just dab it on their food. Eating it whole would be agony." Gabriel shrugged and put the entire thing in his mouth. Gabriel hummed his enthusiasm. "Nice. Sort of like very sweet and mild jalapeno," he said, swallowing the tasty treat. "Wow," Risotti said. She had expected it, but seeing it for herself was entirely different. She had seen videos of Etulana, who had eaten it accidentally or for a dare. To see one just enjoy it gave her the urge to try for herself. Fortunately, she was wearing her mask, and the risk of horrible infection stopped her. "Try that one next," Nish said, pointing to a small slice of meat. "What is it?" Gabriel asked, giving the delightfully charred piece of flesh a gentle poke with his fork. Paradise world or not, you could never be too careful. "It's from an animal called the Yorek, a flying mammalia form, known in certain circles to be an endurance test during the Hekol civilization's courtship displays," Nish explained, showing off her knowledge once again. Gabriel took a bite and immediately frowned. "It's sour," he proclaimed. "It's mouldy lemon chicken." "But you haven't thrown up," Nish commented. It went much as it began. Gabriel would try something, and 9 times out of 10, it would be edible, but awful. There were some exceptions. The column was similar to porridge, but nicer. It had a natural sweetness that meant sugar was unnecessary. "This is an endurance food?" he asked, scooping another spoonful of the warm mixture into his mouth. "Yeah," Nish answered, just watching him consume mouthful after mouthful of the toxic substance. Gabriel finished his bowl, and he was now well and truly stuffed. "I wrestled 2 of the mightiest predators in the galaxy with my bare hands, but this is what fascinates you?" "Please, Gabriel, I don't want to think about that day, not yet," Nish replied, blinking rapidly. Yeah, Pista called out, covering her ears. "This is far less definitely than the other feat," Risotti explained. "Yeah, you're right," Gabriel replied, gently banging the tabletop. A weird way to spend your afternoon, but not unpleasant, thought Gabriel.